Hello, magic makers, and welcome back to the Metaphysical Apothecary. We are your hosts, Shannon and Megan.
Hi, everyone.
Also known as the Scorpio Sisters, here to explore the mysterious, the magical, and the arcane. Today, we are going to be talking about bioregional witching. Normally when bioregion comes up, we start thinking about science and the different types of environment in which a person or peoples or animals and plants actually live and reside. Arctic, tropic, subtropic, desert, coastal, mountainous regions. Bioregion is where you live. Another part of bioregion witching is, do you live in an urban setting? Do you live in a suburban setting? Do you live in a rural setting?
Yes, there's a very, very common picture of those who practice witchcraft as being the forest hermit or living on the craggy, stony beaches or otherwise being in the mountains, somehow being at one with nature. For most of us, reality is that we're living in some sort of area that is crowded with other people. So we're going to be exploring some ways in which we've crafted our magic in different human bioregions.
One of the first things in attempting to hone your human bioregion with your magic and your practice is by attempting to identify the spirit and the energy of the place you're living in. The genus loci. Molly Roberts has at least one video on this. So I happen to live in an urban area. Part of the way that I've been able to identify the genus loci in my area is by looking at things that are really unique in New York City. I'm looking at the grid system, the lights, the theater, the liveliness, the fact that it never really sleeps, the museums, the boroughs, how they connect to each other, both on a physical transportation level as well as on a social dynamic level. And the monuments from history, the things that are important, significant. What does that mean for working magic? Where is the best places for me to work magic? A genus loci, especially in an urban setting, is continuously growing and evolving and changing to the point where you have to have some kind of active participation with it.
Yeah, and I feel like urban setting genus loci have more potential to change much, much more rapidly than in a suburban or rural setting because of the intense human activity that happens around them.
And it is very intense. Part of our civilization is building buildings, right? So you barely pay any attention to a construction site that's happening. Even if there's several construction sites happening in the same general area, you're not usually home to hear the cranes and the pounding of the steel beams into the ground for foundation. You don't hear all of the construction work.
Right.
They're loud and they're busy and they're dangerous. Those elements come out and do chase away the genus loci to a place that's not nearly as intense.
Right. We know that there are probably urban witches and magical practitioners out there who thrive on the chaotic energy of a construction site. And essentially that becomes a temporary genus loci site where the activity, the intensity of the energy that's coming off of it can become something that you can infuse into your practice.
Oh yeah, it's super easy to raise energy because there's just so much energy there already. You don't even have to try.
Yeah, that's not the case for me because I cannot stand that kind of intensity of energy, but for other people it might be amazing.
I actually don't mind construction sites at night because the energy is still there. It's just not as bombastic. At night, the energy is coming down and it's just as easy for me to siphon off energy from that site as it's coming down than when it's at its height during the day. I can walk through the neighborhood with construction sites and be able to draw energy from there because of just how much there is. And you're not even taking anything away from the construction in and of itself. I just store it away for a period of time until I get to the site that I'm going to be working in.
In an urban setting, there are so many different opportunities to find little hidden pockets of magic. And I think that's why so many fantasy settings are now in urban areas. If you think about a series like The Magicians, that happens in New York City. And these cities actually have their own heartbeat. So I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. I live in a different part of New Jersey where we're very, very close to Philadelphia. The first few times that I visited Philadelphia, it was overwhelming. Lots of tall buildings. I felt like they crowded out the sky. I. My wife, she grew up there. She helped me explore more and more of Philadelphia. And I started to realize there's a rhythm here. There's a heartbeat here. And there's definitely a potential for accruing energy and creating powerful kinds of magic. There's a glass garden called Philadelphia's Magic Garden. There's glass mosaics all over the walls. They've used glass bottles embedded in cement to create walls. There's color and shine and reflection everywhere. So it's like this playground. You could do urban fairy magic. You could do a banishing or a summoning. Use that to reflect something onto you or cast it away from you. Graffiti is excellent for magic. Street art. Historic buildings hold a lot of energy. We've done a bunch of Grim Philly tours where they take us on haunted tours of Philadelphia. The history, you can really, really feel it. And you could really just embed yourself in this energy and really pull it in and use it to fuel something like an ancestor working. There's something about urban cemeteries that's extremely alluring to me. I don't know what it is, but urban cemeteries rather than rural ones are just something about the energy in there that's great.
Urban cemeteries are still in the midst of life.
True.
And when you go to a rural cemetery, not that I don't enjoy them, but they're usually set aside very far from where all the other humans are.
That's very true.
They might be between fields or in the middle of the forest. Some of them are forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that there aren't urban cemeteries that have filled up and then been forgotten. That's actually happened. There's a cemetery that was forgotten, and only in recent decades did a police officer stumble across the cemetery while he was walking up what he thought was a overgrown hill while he was thinking of a case that he was working. He ran across a dead body of a different case.
Oh my goodness.
And realized that this is a live investigation and that this is also a cemetery that the body was dumped in.
Oh my goodness.
Cemeteries in urban areas can be forgotten, but even when it's forgotten, it's still lively.
Right. It's all about the energy of space, which is what genius loci is. So you've got these pockets of changing energy in an urban cemetery, whereas in a rural cemetery, like you were saying, they can be tucked away and forgotten about, but that has its own allure because you go in there and you start stirring things up and all of a sudden activity starts to rise again.
You do have the energy of space. It's a vibration and a frequency that changes based off of where you are, what city you're in, what rural setting are you in, what do the people in that setting do as well, whether it's suburban, urban, or rural setting. If your setting has a lot of churches, there's a different energy there.
And churches are also amazing places to work pagan magic. I cannot tell you how satisfying it can be to work magic in a Christian church. Just because the energy in a church is so often reverent. Going in there to do a cleansing, to meditate. I find empty churches to be the most wonderful liminal space. I've never had the opportunity to do this in an urban setting, but one of the other spaces that I would love to occupy while it's empty and really enjoy being in, even when it's full, are theaters. Not movie theaters, the ones where you go to see plays that have that smell, they have the red carpeting, they've got the Art Deco or Art Nouveau, they've got gilding, they've got cherubs and the scroll work on the ceilings, and sometimes they have astrological things up there, the energy coming off a good performance.
And the energy of the audience. There's just a ton of good energy in a theater.
Yes.
See a play or a musical on Broadway or off Broadway, and even though I won't do the magic in the theater, I get back and I do some magic, and the volume is turned up to 100.
Absolutely. There's something about the synergy of the entire audience sort of being focused on one thing at the same time. The interplay, the harmony that happens among people in a live theater like that. It's amazing.
It crosses all the old prejudices that we're trying to get away from. If you have a ticket and you have a seat, you are an audience member, and that is the only thing that defines you. It's transcendent.
Yeah, there's a transcendence to it for sure. When you're in a full theater, I have always wanted to go into these theaters when they're empty. I mentioned liminal space earlier. As a follower of Hecate and a few other deities who love to occupy liminal space, I love any space that is quiet and dark but is supposed to be full of people. And theaters are one of those places I would love to just be let loose in there and just use the residual energy in that space to fuel something really great. Imagine creating a giant crystal grid for healing or for any other purpose on a theater stage. And the incredible power that would have. The closest I'm likely to get is what you were talking about, Shannon, is coming out of a show and then going home and using what I've gathered, what's inside of me, just vibrating, getting ready to let loose, and fusing that into something.
The only empty theater I've ever been in was the one at Lycoming.
Yes. Yeah, Shannon and I met at Lycoming College in Pennsylvania. That's where we went to undergrad. So we had quite some adventures there. So that's all we have on our topic for today. Thank you so much for listening in, and we hope you'll join us again soon. In the meantime, you can follow us for more witchy wisdom, both here and on our blog. And you can also check out our original art on Society 6 for sacred decor and more. Thanks again for joining us. Go make some magic and live your best life.
Bye!